Smooth 98.1 Lagos. Here we are, gone past 7:30 on a Monday morning. Welcome to Smooth Breakfast and to Freshly Pressed. I'm Shopper Martins.
I'm Victor Purple.
And joining us for the next half hour, we've got Mr. C in the studio. Good morning, Mr. C.
Good morning, Shockbag. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning. Well, there are several platforms to reach us on the show this morning.
Yes. Let's start off with Twitter.
Let's see if she remembers.
You can find us at Smooth981FM up on Twitter.
That's
You
right.
can send your WhatsApp messages into 0809 444
She didn't even look at the numbers.
And you can take it up on youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos, where we are streaming live right now. And leave your comments up on that live stream. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Let's get things started from this day newspaper real quickly. Presidency reacts to trending video of abducted train passengers. Explain why terrorist locations can't be bombed. Now, the presidency yesterday reacted to a trending video on social media showing the remaining Kaduna train passengers in captivity being beaten by terrorists, saying the military has the wherewithal to bomb the location, but was only concerned about the attendant civilian casualty. Mr. C, let's come to you for details of this one.
Okay, thank you, Victor. So, on Saturday, I believe, we were treated to very disturbing images and a disturbing video wherein we saw people who ostensibly are part of the group of people abducted on the Abuja, Kaduna to Abuja train service on the 28th of March 2022. And they were being visibly assaulted by unidentified men, being flogged with whips and canes. Now, this is extremely traumatic, not just for the victims of this physical abuse, but also for their loved ones who had to go through the trauma of watching those disturbing images. And our thoughts continue to go out to both the victims and their loved ones, and we continue to hope and pray that they're reunited someday. Now, to the presidency's response that they know where they are, but they can't carpet bomb the place because of civilian or collateral damage. Why is a carpet bombing in this particular instance the only option, the only seeming option? The presidency explains that the security forces know what to do, they've been properly motivated, and they cannot disclose all their strategies in the public space or in the media. That is correct. However, if you know where they are and one option doesn't work, is there still a plan to get them out? Is there any urgency behind that plan to get them out? Extremely traumatic. And when you put this incident together with other incidents, the Senate has sought to criminalize the paying of ransom. Nobody elected or volunteered to be kidnapped. It is the expectation of every Nigerian, whether free or in captivity, that the Nigerian government will come to his or her aid in times of trouble. So far, this has not been clearly demonstrated by the Nigerian government. Will they rise to the occasion? I do not know. Now, when they talk about carpet bombing, there are other locations where the terrorists are said to be congregating where there are no civilian hostages. Why haven't you applied that yet? Now, the idea of carpet bombing is not to destroy the place, it's to flush them out. Then you can pick them up. Why it is seeming difficult for our security forces and the government to do the needful remains to be understood. And there are many mysteries surrounding the activities of terrorists operating in Nigeria, and we will never get to the bottom of it until there's a clear determination by the political elite, by the government in power, to exercise that political will and bring this menace to an end.
Now, there was a video yesterday where some bandits were saying because their demands have not been met, soon enough they will come to kidnap prominent Nigerians, including the president and the governor of Kaduna State.
Okay, so Victor, I haven't seen that video, but there was another incident. A former governor of Bauchi State lost a brother. The brother was killed by terrorists, and the sister was kidnapped. Now, how many more innocent Nigerians will have to be deprived of their fundamental liberty or even their lives before the government wakes up and decides enough is enough. You cannot continue to apply the same methods, the same strategies that have yielded yes, less than desirable results. You have to try something different. If you continue to do the same thing over and over again, you cannot expect different results.
But how can we bring an end to these serial kidnappings we're seeing in Nigeria? Because yesterday in Niger State, 9 people were kidnapped by bandits, though the police rescued 4.
Okay, so Victor, this is not really rocket science, and the people paid to do this. But for the benefit of the people listening, these terrorists have supply sources. They supplied arms, they supplied ammunition, they supplied cash, they supplied food, they supplied provisions. Who are the people making these supplies? Now, when abductees have been previously kidnapped and released, we've continued to receive reports that cash was paid. Now, the terrorists operate on motorcycles. They run around in convoys, right? They are not spirits. They don't fall out from the sky and disappear after operations. They come out from a particular location and go back either to that same location or a different location. Now, intelligence plays a key part. I don't know, I can't speak to the efforts the Nigerian security agencies have made towards intelligence gathering, but there's more that can be done. And even from the place of justice, there will be no peace until there's justice. So those arrested, are they being publicly tried? Are they being publicly convicted? Everything is kept in secrecy. There's less than ideal transparency, and this
All right.
has to change.
Yes. Okay. So we've got your messages coming in already up on 0809 We'll read this one out from Yinka Bolu, who says, "Our prayers go out to the families who are affected by the kidnapping in one way or another. However, playing this round might come back to haunt us because they are only going to probably buy more guns. That said, we need to send out a strong message to these guys in the course of doing that. They will be collateral damage, but we can minimize it." He says a lot of people might disagree with this, but it is what it is. That's what Yinka has to say. And more coming in.
Well, Chris from Ajay is saying, with all the army stories, military presence, yet Kaduna is now a den of terrorism. Government must be involved in this racket.
We've got this one. Isildo says, well, the only reason Nigerian security agencies will be discussing their strategy in the media and giving excuses as well. Cry the beloved country. He says something about incompetence, incompetence, incompetence.
PJ's aide says the current administration has shown gross incompetence and abdication of its primary responsibility of protecting citizens. Who could imagine that the almighty Nigerian army cannot root a ragtag team of rogues riding mere motorbikes? Philip in Lagos.
Wow, more messages coming in. This time, Victor Shion says the government should step up on a special military operation to rescue the victims. Outright bombing of the locations is not the right strategy in this case. What are our elite forces doing? Okay, let's get into the next story, which comes in from Vanguard. And the headline reads, IPOB lauds UN for requesting Kanu's unconditional release and compensation. Their recommendation coming on the heels of the opinion of the UN Human Rights Council Working Group on arbitrary detention, which came out and said that Nnamdi Kanu should be released, and I quote, immediately and unconditionally, and that compensation be paid to him for the violation of his fundamental rights. So this is what IPOB said. They said, it's our hope that Nigeria, as a member of the United Nations, will take heed and promptly obey and implement the UN directives to the letter. We caution that this is not a Nigerian court order that is often disobeyed without consequences. But Mr. C, I really would love to get your take on this, because as we see this coming around from the United Nations, which is an international body, do we see this having any sort of effect on the treatment of Nnamdi Kanu?
Okay, so that's an interesting question, but I need to do a quick backtrack for the benefit of listeners who are wondering, what is this working group on arbitrary detention? Now, this is a group, an organ of the United Nations that was set up in 1990 to investigate cases like this. Now, on the 30th of December 2021, that was last year, they transmitted to the Nigerian and Kenyan governments a communication concerning Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, the circumstances relating to his extraordinary rendition from Kenya to Nigeria. Now, a rendition simply means the removal of someone forcefully from one location to another. Now, it's interesting to note that the Nigerian government replied the communication on the 25th of January 2022. Kenya did not reply the communication to the 8th of April. This working group held its 93rd session, and its report, a 16-page report, was issued on the 20th of July 2022. And in that report, they made a number of findings. They said that the Nigerian government did not provide compelling or sufficient evidence in support of its claims that Mr. Nnamdi Kanu had committed treason and all the other offenses with he's charged here. And they came to a conclusion that he's being unfairly prosecuted because of his views concerning the Nigerian state. Now, they've given the Nigerian government 6 months to comply with its opinion, and they state that they have the mechanisms to ensure compliance. Now, we must remember something. Nigeria is a sovereign state. Their listeners will be arguing that, and that is very correct. Now, what are the implications if Nigeria refuses to honor their request? Yes, discussions could start. There might be the threat or even the implementation of sanctions. But even with all of that, Nigeria will argue that he's facing charges here. And whether or not you believe the charges are valid or not, that is an extent. Nigerian government will maintain that that's an opinion, it's not law, and that he's standing trial here, and that he's been given every opportunity to clear his name and have his day in court. And that the foreign nations who always say we should abide by the rule of law should also await the decision of the Nigerian courts concerning his trial matter. So we wait and see what will happen. I do not see this present administration releasing him. Will the case against him in court succeed? My response is simple. It depends on what material is placed before the trial judge by both the Nigerian government and Mr. Nnamdi Kanu. And depending on what is placed before the trial judge will then come to a determination one way or the other as to which of the stories presented to him is correct, and he will give his decision.
All right, let's keep it going. Guardian newspaper now. Serap sues INEC for failing to prosecute Ekiti-Guba vote buyers. Serap, being the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, has sued the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC at a federal high court in Abuja for failing to prosecute those suspected of buying votes and bribing, voters during the recently concluded Ekiti State governorship election. This is not the first time, Mr. C, that videos will circulate of people who are trying to induce voters. INEC says these, but I don't know, it seems there's little or not so much that INEC can do. The next story, INEC is even asking for a commission to be set up.
Yes, they're saying that it would be along the lines of an EFCC, but for electoral issues. We'll actually just add that to this story. Okay, so that one comes in from the Guardian newspaper. Vote buying INEC tasks National Assembly on speedy passage of Electoral Offences Commission bill. Going into the meat of that, in fact, we even heard from the INEC resident electoral commissioner in Lagos State, Mr. Olusegun Agbaje, who spoke with the news agency of Nigeria on Sunday, saying that if passed, that the bill would then ensure the speedy trial of electoral offenders, including vote buyers and vote sellers, and that if they were arrested and quickly prosecuted, then there would be more sanity in the 2023 general elections. We've already had a whole conversation about this downstairs, Mr. C, but let's bring it on air because this is such an important matter. And do you think that what Mr. Agbaje says is could actually pass, or
it should, because it's passed in other countries? And I'm going to start by saying this. Sometime this year there was an election in Kenya, I think, for the Senate, and on the day of the election, a campaign manager for one of the senatorial candidates was arrested with large sums of money in different envelopes on his person.
So it's an African thing.
But pause, here's where it gets more interesting. The same day he was arrested, he was arraigned in court.
Same day.
Same day. Trials started that day. The very next day, he was convicted and sentenced to prison for 3 years. Now, the Ekiti election held a few months back. We saw pictures of individuals supposedly being arrested for vote buying or attempting to buy votes. It's been a few months after that. Whatever came out of those arrests? The police arrested those individuals. So it's shocking to see Serap suing INEC because the truth of the matter remains this. If Nigeria was working properly and everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing, we shouldn't be reading or analyzing stories like this. Now, INEC has recommended, is advocating the establishment of an electoral offences commission. Why do we have the Nigerian police force? That is something they can handle. It's a criminal offense. They're the body primarily charged with preventing crime and then prosecuting crime. So the money required to set up that commission, to staff it properly, to equip it, if that money was given to the Nigerian police force and then you set up a specialized department within the Nigerian police force to do what this commission is supposed to be doing, that would be a much better proposition. Now, our legal system here drags. I'm a lawyer and I can speak to this. It takes forever. We need to come to a point where we cut out all the delays and speedily try cases, because a large part of the nonsense going on in Nigeria today is because cases drag on forever. There are no known consequences, and people continue to believe that they can get away with anything and everything under the sun. If you have to set up electoral courts or dedicate special judges within the court system to only handle these matters, so be it. But there must be a speedy dispensation of justice if we're to get out of this quagmire.
Let's just add this story since we're discussing INEC 2023 elections in jeopardy over infighting at INEC, and it looks like the APC leadership is trying to ensure the participation of the Senate President and Godswill Akpabio in the 2023 senatorial elections at their different senatorial districts.
Okay, very quickly, Victor. It's not just the APC. So the political parties, some of the political parties, are trying to unfairly and unlawfully influence INEC to doing the bidding. Now, we will recall that the senatorial primaries were held in the month of May this year. The presidential primary was held in June. Senators Lawan and Akpabio contested the APC primaries in June. Subsequently, after they stepped down or they did not win as in cases, primaries was supposedly conducted and they supposedly emerged the candidates. But here's the snag. Section 84, subsection 1, I believe, of the Electoral Act states that INEC must supervise and attend your primaries. Now, the primaries INEC attended were conducted in May. The primaries Senators Lawan and Akpabio are referring to were conducted sometime in June. That is the first problem. Now, under the Electoral Act, there's another provision, the section doesn't come readily to mind, but it prohibits clearly any candidate from contesting for two different positions. Now, it is common knowledge that both gentlemen contested the presidential primaries. Now, what that means is they cannot lawfully contest for any senatorial position, and the law is clear. You could be liable to a 2-year prison term. So it's something they need to sit down with their lawyers and carefully consider. Now, in Delta State, the second leg of these problems are we have INEC refusing to do the needful with regards to court orders. In some states, they tell the parties that we are constrained from taking your point because we are aware of court orders. In another state, in the Niger Delta, a federal high court disqualified the candidate of a major party
Mm.
and indicated who should have been the candidate. Instead of INEC to do the needful and tell them that this is the candidate we are going to put on our records because of the court judgment, they just told the party, please be advised of the court judgment. So there's a lot of infighting, there are a lot of intrigues, and they must be careful not to get caught in this politics.
Now, in the case of the Senate president, the sitting Senate president, and the former minister of the Niger Delta, if the APC leadership still insists that these are the candidates for those, just a moment, for the senatorial districts in their various states, Yobe and Akwa Ibom, wouldn't the candidates that names have been submitted to INEC go to court to challenge this?
Yes, they could. Yes, they can and should go to court, and the court will look at all the materials, will look at the facts, and then give its decision. Now, it's interesting in Senator Lawan's case, the candidate who won the primaries has consistently refused to step down. Now, if he has stepped down and withdrawn in line with Section 31, then Senator Lawan would not have a problem. But he's refused to step down. I think that's the same thing that applies to Senator Akpabio.
Mm.
But more importantly, they run the risk of being criminally prosecuted because they cannot contest for two different offices at the same election. That's the law. So I don't know how they want to succeed with this plan, with these plans of theirs.
No, but Akpabio stepped down. He didn't contest as president.
He bought the form. He stepped down at the venue.
Okay.
What do you think is the actual? Because you've talked about running the risk. Do you think the risk is high or low when it comes to being prosecuted for this?
So, yes, there's some risk, but who wants to take the chances of being used as a scapegoat or as a guinea pig?
Well, we'll let you answer that question. Going over to your messages up on WhatsApp 0809 981. Remember, you can also tweet at us at smooth981fm and take it to youtube.com/smooth981fm Lagos, where you can leave a comment up on the live stream. We are monitoring all platforms. Starting off with WhatsApp, we have this one in from Tayo. Going back to our very first story, who says an American was kidnapped in Kaduna and taken to Sokoto. So it took American special forces to free their one citizen, but government is thinking of carpet bombing. All this money going to defense only to think with one means. I shake my head. It's not as an exercise, but in disbelief, says Tayo.
Joseph is in with this one. It's just obvious, whether we want to accept it or not. There are moles both in government and security architecture, which some persons are feeding fat upon. Because how can you explain technology and intelligence gathering is lacking? Now the very innocent citizen will suffer for crimes of our leaders. God help us. Joseph Inejibo sent that one across.
Okay, and the video of assaulting hostages and threatening to kidnap the president and the governor is an embarrassment, but people are more interested in either becoming articulated or Jacobinized or obedient for 2023 elections. What a country, says Idimabuza from Surulere.
Jibril is in. He says, if Yusuf Buhari was among those in captivities, would he still be there by now?
That's what we call a rhetorical question.
Mm.
And Dami from Ikeja says 13 years after Boko Haram kicked off an insurgency and over $30 billion given to the military, we can't rescue our own citizens kidnapped in our country by and I'm quoting Dami here, technically defeated group 4 months ago. Well, Dami is also quoting other people. That press statement, apart from showing the helplessness of our security setup, is offensive to all the victims of their training attack. And we've got more.
Well, Ni's in with this one. Our generals have proven to be ineffective despite all the trainings and funding they have received. The terrorists successfully released their colleagues from Kuje prison, yet our law enforcement structures could not rescue the kidnapped trained victims. The party in power has failed to implement the changes it promised Nigerians in 2014 and does not deserve to continue next year. I hope Nigerians, youth and their parents can come out to vote in 2023. Omoni.
All right, and let's take it to our next story.
All right, one more story maybe. Let's see if we can squeeze this one in very quickly. And
Coming in from the Vanguard newspaper, electricity poor remittance by discos creates 67 billion naira deficit.
all right, and failure by 11 electricity distribution companies in Nigeria, discos, to fully pay for electricity allocated to them created a deficit of 66.85 billion naira in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. Mr. C, bring us up to speed with this one.
Okay, Victor. So let me double back. In Q2 of 2021, the remittance figures were about 50%. It rose to about 67% in Q3, and the 11 discos paid the sum about of 141.69 billion, leaving a deficit of 66.85 billion. Now, what that means is the Transmission Company of Nigeria (TCN) transmitted to the discos power worth 208 billion naira, but the discos only paid 141.3 billion. Now that deficit was supplied. Why wasn't the money remitted? What are the hangups? Yes, you could factor in figures for energy losses, but that is a huge sum not to remit. And then it's not surprising that in the past 2 or 3 weeks we've been inundated with reports in the media that four of the discos have been taken over by AMCON and the banks because they couldn't repay the facilities that were used in acquiring the licenses. Now, beyond all of that, the story goes further to say that the power subsidies are still there, which I find very surprising because there was a previous report which indicated that the power subsidies had gone. And I think it was the finance minister who was saying that. Now, NEC is saying that there's a difference between the cost reflective tariff and the tariffs we pay, and that difference will continue to be borne by the government.
Right.
But beyond all of this, they've instituted a new framework which ensures that monies that come to the discos are put in an escrow account and they cannot touch these sums until all the outstanding liabilities to TCN, to NBET, to the GENCOs are fully met with. That it's only when all of that happens that they can then use money for the operational requirements. And it brings us to the elephant in the room. Since the discos took over, there has been no fresh capitalization conducted. With the fall in the value of the naira vis-a-vis the US dollar, it is crystal clear that a new round of capital injection needs to take place. The equipment they use, the spares, are all denominated in USD. They are not made here. They have to be imported. And that takes time with all the bottlenecks at the ports. So it is crystal clear that if we're going to move forward, we need to inject fresh capital, maybe get new investors into the discos. That's part of the solution. Another part of the solution, we need to stop this subsidy business. I'm not saying it should be removed in one swell.
But if we take out electricity subsidy, wouldn't Nigerians pay much more than what we're paying now? And then feel as well, we're complaining about how much we pay.
So it's a chicken and egg conundrum, right? Which one comes first? Some people say the chicken, some say it's the egg. Now, same thing with the power industry. The power guys are saying you need to pay the real tariff to get proper power. The consumers are saying no, give us the proper power, we'll pay the proper tariffs. Something has to give here. I am not saying that you must extinguish the power subsidy overnight. You can phase it out. But the truth of the matter is, long term, we cannot afford this subsidy. We can't afford subsidy in any form or guise.
Well, like you said, according to the Minister of Finance, we didn't. We weren't supposed to have
And
it.
now we're at a
It
situation.
was quietly removed.
Now we're at a situation where the government has now publicly admitted we're spending more to service our debts than earning revenue.
Well, we need to go, Mr. C. Thank you very much. But let's wrap up with a message from Victor Sheung. The case of Lawan and Fabio is a learning point for those politicians without any political vision stepping down from an electoral race. INEC should use this case to teach them a lesson.
All right, and that's that. Make sure you find us at Smooth 981 FM up on Twitter and keep on messaging. And you can find Mr. C at Monsieur C. And there are three E's after the C. Find him on Twitter.
My name is Pepple.
I'm Shopper Martins, and we'll be with you. Come again at 8:15 when it will be time for the locker room.
The headlines.